For the longest time, I never understood how Leave It to Beaver failed at the box office. It's based off a popular TV sitcom and had a popular revival in the 80s. And other movies based off classic TV shows were doing well at the box office at the time. This sounds like it should be a hit, like previous films in the same genre. I never watched the original Leave It to Beaver. I've seen clips of the show and know mostly what it's about. But with this movie, you don't need to know anything about the show or that it even exists. It's a whole new cast, and it takes place in today, which was at the 90s at the time, instead of the 50s. So obviously, this is going to alienate the original fans of the show, which I'm taking a wild guess here and say it turned them off big time. Just to be fair, Leave It to Beaver ran in the 50s and 60s, so that's a 40 years difference. Yeah, there was that 80s revival, but that was only about 20-year difference, so the fans are not too old. So with this 97 version, it's pretty clear Universal was not trying to please the fans of the original, even though the whole movie references aspects from the original show and uses plots from different episodes. Beaver Cleaver and Wally are our main focus, two brothers that live in a nice suburban neighborhood in Mayfield. With such a nice clean town to live in, what is the worst thing that could happen in this place? Beaver's bike gets stolen. Oh no. Beaver gets the bike he wants so much from his birthday and gets it stolen by this kid. I think he's supposed to be a high school teen, but looks way older, at least to me. When mom and dad find out, his dad gets furious and says all the stuff that Beaver has lost or got broken. Oh no, seeing that Game Boy getting run over always hurts me. But Beaver also has this problem of trying to make his dad proud of him, which is why he plays Pee Wee football. This is how he gets his bike at his birthday party. I love how when he gets a computer, he is not one bit excited since he sees it as just an educational machine. I got a computer around the same time, and yeah, it was mostly for learning, but you could play games on it. Just funny to see how much a computer has evolved since then, and any kid I believe would be ecstatic for one. So after all the yelling at Beaver, Wally gets in trouble since he wasn't watching Beaver when his bike got stolen. That's when they fight and knock that computer out the window and it breaks into pieces. Oh no, first the Game Boy and now a computer breaking? I can't take all this technology blowing up like this. So now Beaver is in trouble for losing his bike, and he's not doing well in school, so he's gotta stay after and doesn't want to play football, but keeps it a secret from his dad so he won't get even more upset. And Wally is getting in a relationship with Karen, a girl that his best friend Eddie Haskell was trying to get at. This Eddie kid probably one of the originators of sucking up and playing nice to adults, like Beaver and Wally's parents, but acts rude and tough when not around. If you ever seen this kind of behavior in any other show, Leave It to Beaver, not this movie, but the original show started that trend. So that's the movie. Beaver has to get his bike back, and Wally gets with Karen and also gets his girl taken from this kid who is also friends with the kid who took Beaver's bike. You know, one thing I like a lot about Leave It to Beaver is even though this is a 90s movie, they really don't push that 90s fashion. I mean, it still is, but it's not exaggerated like in other shows and movies at the time. Until you see these two who just scream 90s clothes and attitude, it stands out a lot. But maybe that's the point, or maybe not. It's just something I think of every time I see this. Even though Leave It to Beaver uses such simple storylines, it makes up for it by being really funny. Everybody in this movie gets a good laugh. Even minor characters like Beaver's friend is funny, and the kids on the football team and his class. Even Judy, who is always teasing Beaver. I feel Judy had a lot more scenes, and I'm sure they were really funny because the ones that she's in are. Especially when the teacher tells Judy to tutor Beaver, and he's just not gonna have it and walks out and says she's got an ugly voice. That's the ultimate meanest thing to say to any girl, but when you're someone that acts like Judy, you're kinda asking for it. So, what are the other possible reasons why this movie didn't do so well? We talked about the new cast, pretty much a reboot of the show, but still made references and brought in two cameos from the original. Beaver's grandma is the original mom from the show, and Eddie's grandpa is the original Eddie from the show. We also hear Beaver humming the theme song towards the end of the movie. And the ending credits is the same as the original end credits with Beaver and Wally walking to their house. Also, another point to note, The movie shows Pee Wee football. Just 3 years before, we had The Little Giants, so this looked way too similar to a previous movie, and the whole bike getting stolen reminds me of Pee Wee's Big Adventure, so taking two plots and ideas from two other movies and putting it here. I understand that these storylines are from the original show, but still way too similar to other theatrical releases. It's obvious Universal trying to get the same success as Little Rascals, another movie based off a show from way back, but they couldn't strike a hit with Beaver. The Little Rascals had its own charm and humor with all those kids, and they were really funny. It's rare to find kids that young and be fun to watch. Even though I believe Leave It to Beaver is just as funny and good as Little Rascals, I don't think that was enough to please a fan, so it disappoints them and it fails to attract a new audience. Until Disney Channel. That's where I first saw this movie, and many others did as well. I wouldn't be surprised if people thought this was a Disney Channel movie. I mean, it plays like one. It even has Brenda Song, which went on to do many Disney Channel original movies, and of course, Sweet Life, and Eric Von Detten, who went to do Brink, one of the most popular DComs ever made. Disney Channel played this so much back in the early 2000s, if it wasn't for that Universal logo, I'd be convinced this was a DCOM. So eventually, Leave It to Beaver did find success and its audience, but for fans of Leave It to Beaver, this movie killed the franchise and it was never heard of ever again.
Even in the most dire of circumstances, you look as though you've just walked off the runway.
Eddie,
Yes, Mrs. Cleaver?
cut the crap.